And I didn't bring those reports, but I can get them, or you can get them. I know, we got Brian on here?
We do.
Everybody, yes, I'm on. I'm just car bound for another about 3 minutes, but I've been listening to you. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I've told, go ahead, Fox.
Just one real quick thing, Bill. Back at the start of that Willow Creek effort by the city, that was also the end of a smaller, more focused study that the city and the village undertook cooperatively. That used a consultant called AE2S to do kind of just post 2018 flood analysis and do some pretty I'll say big picture planning on ideas and different options, particularly while the University Avenue project was being contemplated and designed. This study, the most recent one, the much more detailed Willow Creek one, as I recall, that Carl and Dave Benferrato and Carl Franz had offered to jointly participate in this. The city declined on that effort. The future boards may have declined if the city of Madison asked, but there was some effort to participate in the detailed Willow Creek study at that time, at least.
Well, Brian, at some point, while the ad hoc stormwater committee was at work, it came to a point and they said, okay, Ben Ferraro said, okay, we're just going to shut down the ad hoc stormwater committee and turn this over, and we'll wait for anything further that we do for till the city is done with its stormwater. I mean, it's watershed study. That was the last report of the ad hoc stormwater committee. So,
I will say also, Bill, that we have talked about this in the committee, and I know since I've been here, I made the recommendations that these maps should be available on our website. So that if somebody comes into the village and says, you know, I'm buying a house on X street, that they at least have this information. So I have made that recommendation. And we did talk about other things, you know, a signage with a marker where the high water mark is, but it was concluded that that just may scare a bunch of people who
sell some real estate?
Huh?
Scare people who sell real estate?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, I think it seems to me that if we put this information on a tab on the website that says local flood information or whatever it is, that if somebody wants to make an effort and look into if they're buying a property or their existing property, they can look this up.
Well, I don't think anyone paid attention to you because just earlier this year, someone sold, a realtor from the village, sold one of these houses that's going to be flooded for $1.1 million. And they had no obligation whatsoever to tell that person that that area had been flooded. And they didn't. I'm sure they didn't.
I don't know quite how to rectify that, but I think that's a
situation, isn't it?
It's a situation, yes.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, did
so,
you have more that, I don't want to stop you, but we have some other business. If
Sure,
you'd like to hang around and we have some extra time because we're always up against this, our 7 o'clock, plan commission meeting, and if you'd like to stay around, and we want to further discuss this, then I'm happy to provide you the time.
Okay. I have one other bit of news. I talked today to the people who manage real estate for the university. And I asked them if the village offered the village golf course to the university to be used as made part of the their
Part of the campus?
part of the camp, yeah, part of the campus, the part they call it the Lake Shore
Preserve.
Nature Preserve. Lake Shore, I just added on to Lake Shore Preserve. And she said, I said, well, you think they would, she said, well, probably.
Well, 94 acres would be fairly attractive, I think, to anyone, but
Yeah.
one of the problems is it's tied up in a 50-year lease.
Yeah, big deal. Yeah, a crooked lease, really.
Oh,
Okay,
I don't really want to go there.
no,
Okay, Terry Hanchek couldn't make it tonight, so the next item, thank you, Bill, by the way, for your comments. I'm really happy you brought this because I had not seen this before, so I'm happy to see that. And I'd like to see the other one for the 4% as well. It would be of interest to me. So if you can provide a link, maybe?
I can provide you all kinds of stuff.
Oh, okay, good. All right, Terry, couldn't make it tonight, but I assume all of you saw this in the attachments. The only thing that was confusing to me, what WRWA was, 3 of the public works people attended that. It's apparently the Wisconsin Rural Water Association, so they went there to get some kind of training and pick up some knowledge. I will say that one thing, I talked to Terry and just about the pool, I said, I thought we left water in the pool for the winter and the pool is now empty. And and this was news to me, but Terry said that he drains it when the swim season is over, and apparently, I don't know, Badger Aquatics typically uses it for a couple more weeks, but they didn't, so he drained it. And the reason is we have to keep adding chemicals, expensive chemicals to it to keep the algae growth down. And so if he leaves it full, we've got that expense of the chemicals, and apparently it's cheaper to drain it. And then as we get towards the cold weather, they have to fill it back up again to prevent the heaving of the ground around. So that was interesting to me. I hadn't realized that.
I feel like he drained it like within 48 hours after Memorial Day.
Yeah,
He was on it. Pull the plug.
Terry's been on a lot of things lately. He's great. I just will say also that on this, that they found some water leaks, and maybe Brian has a better update, but my understanding is that I thought it was originally 3. I know one of them is a friend of mine, and but all 3 leaks were not in the mains themselves. They were between the main and the house, which is the responsibility of the homeowner. And apparently the one was fairly significant. And, there had been some discrepancy. We buy all our water from Madison. So it comes in a couple of places, and there's meters that meter the water. Well, it seemed like we were being charged for more water than we thought we should be. And so the first thing to do logically would be to check and see if there are any leaks. So that's where Terry hired the leak detection company, which came through with their umbilical cord, I guess, that has sound detection, and they found these leaks. And now whether that's enough leak to equal what the difference is in the metering, I'm not sure, but now we know we've eliminated the leaks, and then going forward, the meters can be looked at if there's still discrepancy. Brian, is that a fair assessment of what's happened, or did I get it way wrong?
No, that's it exactly. For you in particular, when you're buying your water from somebody else, every gallon is sacred. If you're from other communities or you talk to their other communities, if they've got their own wells and they have a leak, it sounds crass, but it's really just the electricity to pump the water and let it leak. So a lot of communities have a lot of leakage, 10%, 20%, 30% that just carries on because it doesn't really cost that much money, but you guys have to buy your water by the gallon from Madison. So Terry is carrying on with an effort that previous DPWs had started probably about a decade ago to hire a service to come and do leak detection specifically for that reason, and it's a great investment. They can do the whole village in a day or so, and they find these leaks that for a system of your age, particularly on the west side of town, it's money well spent because that'll kill you financially to be bleeding water 24 hours a day.
And apparently this
Yeah,
one
one
leak,
of the,
yeah, probably hundreds, not thousands of gallons a day. I don't know. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it was significant.
You think you could see it, bubbling out?
Well, my understanding, I don't know exactly where it is, but apparently it's maybe in the rockier part of the village. And I guess it's suspected that it's just flowing down through cracks in the rocks.
Wow.
And we haven't been able to detect it.
But it's
You would
on.
think in a low lying area, it would bubble up or
Right.
have some evidence.
So it's between the main and the meter for the house. So that person wouldn't even have noticed that,
Exactly.
Right.
but it is their responsibility to fix it.
It is, yes. Kim, did you have more to add to that?
no, just, I think you got it. It's an inch and a half. The one in particular is an inch and a half service, and Terry had estimated the total water loss coming on that on a daily basis, somewhere in the realm of 20 to 40,000 gallons a day. Which is really, really significant and accounts for potentially a really, really large percentage of the village's total loss. So that, I mean, it's a really exciting prospect in that, it could save the village a chunk of cash, really. Responsibility wise, just to be clear there, the shut off valve, but
Times 365, I can't do that in my head. That's gotta be a lot of gallons every year.
Is it fair to assume that everybody?
it's a lot of water.
Right, they're gonna drop the rates.
Bob,
That's 11 million gallons if you figure 30 gallons.
and how many gallons do we buy a year?
I don't know, you guys would know that better than I do.
Oh, you probably run through, maybe 100,000 a day, 150,000 a day.
Yeah, so it could be a really, really
Water
large
not gonna go
percentage of
for
the village's
It's
loss.
not gonna
which
get
is
cheap.
Interesting.
Well, thank you, that's, I appreciate your input on that, I hope that I got that right, but that's why we're here, trying to figure this stuff out, so we don't lead ourselves to death on the road. Well, I just thought I'd make one comment regarding the tennis court resurface. I know in the past we've had, they need resurfacing and we're gonna reline them for the tennis lines, but also for pickleball. And I just saw that if you read the New York Times today on the front, there's now a new game. It's somewhere between, what did they call it, padel or paddle?
Oh, Fidel, yeah.
And it's somewhere between pickleball and tennis. So I hope we don't have to draw any more lines, but,
It's been popular in Europe for a long time.
oh, has it?
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more popular here apparently. Okay, next. You guys have any, Brian and Tim, do you have anything you want to add for the good of the order tonight? Any new news, things we should be aware of? That you'd like to share?
We've been working a little with Terry on some of the end of year requirements from Department of Transportation as far as you'll be re-rating your street pavements. That'll help inform if you want to do a street project, which ones are ready or more ready than others. But it's been fairly quiet. I've been doing some of the house reviews. That's been fairly active for a lot of reasons, but actually just total number of applications is pretty high still. Along those lines, I've actually got another meeting later this evening, starting at 6:30. So I'll have to sign off at 6:30, but I think Tim can stick around for a little bit longer as well.
Okay. Can I ask you, in this review of the DOT re-rating of the streets, do you suspect that the tab is gonna change significantly?
I'd be surprised if
Hard to
any
tell if
of them did. No, they haven't been completed yet. I'd be surprised if the pecking order, if you will, changes much, given this is just pavement inspection. It has nothing to do with sewer leaks, water leaks,
Okay.
drainage concerns, or interest in ped bike facilities.
Okay, so this is pavement all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. Shall we move on?
You bet.
Well, next I have, I thought we have these different topics that are residing on our agenda, and, I'd like to make sure that we see those to fruition. And, but I know we've had a time crunch, so my thinking has been, because Brian has to leave, sometimes I have to leave to go to Plan Commission. And I thought we'd work through things and discuss it as we have time, and then maybe the next meeting we start where we left off, and that way we kind of cycle through everything as we need to.
Sure.
So does that seem fair?
Yeah.
So I would start with Tom. Tom, do you have anything you want to talk about, or update, or in regard to the village?
The question you raised is for us to bring this back to the committee as a discussion, and for me, this discussion is whether we should continue the way we've been working or whether there's another way to work. If going back to earlier meetings, we chose 3 priorities for the committee. This goes back before you became chair.
Okay.
And one of those had to do with traffic calming and traffic reduction. As to develop a comprehensive policy statement for the village, for us to recommend to the village. And so that's what I was asked to take responsibility. Christine volunteered to work with me, and then Rob as well, not as chair, but as someone who is knowledgeable about that. And so the question is, I can go over stuff that we've talked about here before. And also I've talked with Brian, if he's still there, and multiple different people, both from the university and also from the village, in terms of getting a sense of what we know and what we don't know. So the real question is, well, the reason it was proposed that way was to decentralize the committee so that the chair didn't have all the responsibility. But the committee would bring it to the committee, the different subcommittees of the different areas would bring it to the committee as a way of having discussion about, in this case, policy. But that was a different chair. So I don't know how you want to work.
No, I think, I think this is an important topic. When I came on, I know you and I talked about it, and it's basically a time issue for Tom. I know that.
Well, that was also for Rob, I think, too.
Well, okay. Maybe he was more efficient than I am. But,
No, wasn't he?
but I think this idea of a subcommittee, when I came into this committee and saw that there was these different topics that Rob had showed me with names beside them, I had presumed, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, but I presumed these were topics that everybody was interested in and wanted to work on. My approach was trying to accommodate that and let you folks take the leads on those. I'm happy to, help review and when I find opportunity, bring it forward. But I can't get in the weeds of every little subcommittee. I just don't have time. So If you want to change that and have, you know, only 3 topics and we're focused on that and then spend, that's up to the committee and I'm open. I took this forward thinking everybody wanted to continue to work on it. Maybe I should have asked it.
Well, I'm not sure what you're saying actually, but if you're saying that you would like, I mean, as a committee, because you, if I remember your note to me, you wanted as a discussion here to see how we wanted to proceed.
Well, I just wanted to, actually, I started out in all these, just and you missed the first couple meetings that I chaired. I just asked it, you know, I asked Tim, so what's happening with the, and the bicycle boulevard? And Bob, what's happening? I just wanted an update to know where we were at. And that's really all I asked of you. And,
I've
you
given,
know, I wasn't expecting a full report
no,
unless you were ready to do that.
no, going back, and this is the question that I'm raising. In the beginning of this year, fiscal year, I guess, starting in September, we chose 3 priorities. One was traffic calming, traffic reduction. One had to do with the infrastructure, if I remember, and the third had to do with bicycles. With the traffic. Was it? I don't remember. As 3 major priorities, not specifics related to whether the street gets it or not. To talk about how we approach it as a committee, to have a long range view of what this committee is about and not. So this is part of that agenda of 3 things. Now, the question is, as a committee, do we want to maintain those 3? In particular, for me, we want to maintain trying to think about what is a policy for the village with traffic, and I'm using both traffic calming and traffic reduction, because that is an issue and will be increasing an issue because of developments both on University Avenue and also the others. So that's my question. And then the question
I think
is,
it's a fair question. I was ignorant of this approach that had been done back in September. So I was totally unaware of it. What I got from Rob was his kind of summary of what had gone on. I don't recall anything about that. What I saw was the list here, and that's what I want to start forward with. If we're on the wrong track, let's recorrect. I mean, I'm all for going back to that if that's what the committee wants. I'm here to work with the committee however you think it should be structured. But this is the first I've heard of that approach. So if we've been spinning wheels here the last few months because I'm going down the wrong track, then I certainly apologize, and let's get back on track with that framework that you've described.
my question, did I get it right?
I do like the approach of each committee member kind of like focusing on one point and providing the meeting with an update every month. I do like that. As opposed to like picking a couple of themes, and I don't even, subcommittees are probably not even, you know, open meeting law. Can you even have subcommittees? Like anything needs to be discussed here. Like I feel like the committee member.
I would call it maybe a subgroup or something that, you know, like Christine and you working on, you're both interested, you're working on it.
You couldn't have a quorum present of the
Right.
committee.
Yeah, so yeah, that was kind of my approach. I didn't want to try to exclude anybody and set my own priorities, because that's not
Right.
That's not fair. It should be the committee's priority. And so I'm totally open, Tom.
No,
I want you to understand that how I approach this, because this is what seemed like it appeared to me the way the committee was run.
And I was just, there has been a lot of miscommunication, and that's part of the issue. And I was operating on the old rules, you weren't aware of them, and therefore, when I was proceeding, it looked like I was, I didn't want to interfere with your agenda as chair. But the question still is, should we pay attention, not the specific things? For example, should we put a stop sign here or not? but to the larger, for me, the larger issue that are raised about what traffic, because it interferes with all these other things.
Yeah.
And if we don't pay attention to it, it will overwhelm us, and it has overwhelmed. So,
I certainly think it ought to be one of the main topics we talk about. So,
and
and I want to make it clear, I have no agenda.
no,
You know, I
I'm not,
came here
I'm not
with a-
accusing you of anything.
Okay.
I'm trying to get clarity about whether, for me in this case, whether I should proceed or whether we should just do it differently. I don't care, but I don't want to engage in things which are not appropriate for the way in which this committee is going to.
Okay, I would say this, if we continue on as I propose, I would say go nuts. Do what you think needs to be done.
I don't want to go
and bring
nuts.
it forward. And you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
you know, go pursue it. It's obviously an interest of yours. You have a passion about it.
I don't have
And
a
I-
passion about it. I just fall into it.
Oh, well, okay, and maybe I misinterpreted. When I saw your name there, I thought you had it. We can recorrect all this. But if you want to go with a model, Tim seems to think this might work. I think we ought to get input from the other committee members. Again, I'm flexible. I just want to make sure that we are addressing public works issues that are important to the village. And how we do that, I'm open. And, but I personally like an idea, you know, if you all are here for a reason, you know, you have things you're interested in, and I would like you to be able to work on it. If you just got somehow dumped on you and you like something else, then I would say let's do that.
It is, for me, all the other things, and this is maybe the way I think, that 90% of the things we deal with have to do with the issue of traffic,
Okay,
not water leaks, but the other things we deal with, whether it's the bicycle paths, whether it's putting speed limits on things. Traffic is one of the things that will impact this village more and more, and it has.
Yeah.
So if that, I don't know, I want to call it a passion because I have other passions that are really more interesting.
I mean, passions within public works as well.
And it seems what has, and I think this came up before you became chair, is a need to be more systematic about different areas that are not just trying to deal with the immediacy of it, which is continually inundating this committee because it has to.
Yeah.
And so I think that was Rob's intent, but also, and you're confirming it, the chair could only do so much. And so his way of dealing with it was to list, I think we listed actually three different, if I remember, three different priorities to try to give it systematic attention. In this case, it was to give it what he asked, and he asked me to do it, was to say, can we develop some general policy to talk about these things, which then give us guidelines, but also is brought to the trustees so that they have some sense of how to make priorities.
Yeah, and I'm the conduit for that, obviously. Yeah.
Well, you're more than a conduit, you're the chair. I mean, you.
Well, but as in terms of the board, you know,
Yeah.
that I feel like, you know, if we come up with these things, I will bring them forward to the board and or to the staff, or, you know, them setting priorities. And if we have action items that we recommend, then I bring that forward. Now, that's not my only job. Obviously, I'm here trying to help run the meeting, but and, you know, I'll get involved as I can, you know, but, I think that traffic and traffic safety is, you know, top three. You know, we have water and sewer, which is top, you know, in the top three, I would guess, and, you know, the whole road maintenance is when I think of infrastructure. Of course, we have buildings, but buildings seems to reside in traditionally more in services rather than here. So, you know, if we want to look at this, the structure of this committee, more following those sort of top three things, that's fine. I think this is important to talk about this, because otherwise we're gonna go forward and we're all sort of operating in a different manner.
So should I'm just want to make sure I'm doing the appropriate thing. Should I continue with developing? I'll say it's a draft statement for us to just talk. I'm not developing a statement for us to approve. Talk about these issues as a way of thinking about what constitutes an appropriate policy. Is that still something that we should be doing? And if so, then I'll do it.
I would say yes, if this is something that, you know, what I had here, village traffic, speed control and reduction documentation. So when I heard documentation, I thought maybe you were working on a report, or maybe, you know, what the existing situation is, what the problems are. If it's more like a policy, I think that's fine too.
That's how I was
I leave that to you.
Okay,
All I wanted you to do is come in and say, hey, I'm working on this thing, and here's what I'm trying to achieve, and here's the scope of it, and that's really all I was looking for.
and that's hopefully what I did. If I did it.
So it's clear now. Yes, but that's really all I was asking of you. I didn't know if you had already had a whole draft document, or where you were at with it, so I was just trying to come up to speed
Okay,
to find out where you were at, and wherever you're at is fine. It's just, and again, I'm easy about this. If you want to cross it off, want to continue working on it, I'm great. But I think we ought to come to maybe tonight's not the night. Maybe we have another meeting when more people are here. How we want to move forward in terms of structure. Do our engineers have any comments on all of this? I don't want to put you on the
I don't
spot.
know if we've got any silver bullet suggestions. As Tom pointed out, it's sometimes been tricky to get all the synergies in place. You know, the committee recommendations to line up with the available funds has often just been a little tricky. So I'd say no technical suggestions, but happy to help if we can, you know, help carry that message either to the board or to a different committee, finance or otherwise.
Thank you for that, Brian. You guys have thoughts?
Just wondering, or maybe for clarification, are you like
I haven't
thinking,
clarified anything.
thinking
Go ahead.
that maybe when, like, we can move forward with an ongoing sort of priority agenda item related to traffic, maybe a village-wide, policy that we could, maybe propose?
I hope so. One of the things that came from the meetings we had when we were talking about Lake Mendota Drive
Right,
was the problem of Lake Mendota Drive was one that was symbolic of a larger issue.
Yeah.
And people kept coming to us about that. And so this was an attempt, I thought, to try to, Lake Mendota Drive was a good, in a sense, exercise to understand for me, a lot of issues. But then it also helped make and clarify the issues as it relates to, for example, the access roads through, as well as internally. And so hopefully something like this will allow us to systematically begin to address these so that when the people in the village feel that it's being addressed.
Yeah, well, I think the way it's sounding is such a document, a policy document, or identification of issues to help guide us, of course, and you know, what are the priorities within the village, taking that holistic view. And I think it's really important, Tom. You know, that's something I really hope that we could do when this Safe Streets for All initiative was possible. By the way, I did call them. I don't know if I reported this last time, but they came back saying that it could still happen if we get the money. You know, it's
What's the,
the safe, so
Federal money, right?
the federal money from Biden's Infrastructure Act, there was money in a program called Safe Streets for All. I think it was $5 billion.
Okay.
And we applied for 150,000 to do to develop a planning document that we would look at all the issues in the village, such as what you talked about. How do we correct those? And then in subsequent years, you would apply for the actual implementation money to go out in the field and solve it. And we did get the grant, but we didn't get the money because of the change of administration. So, but there's some that say it's mostly dead, but not totally dead. You know that reference from
It may be not be that, if you read,
Princess Bride.
if you read, I think it was in the New York Times where they had a bridge being built under Biden's law, but with a picture of Trump saying, look what I'm doing for you. So things are still happening.
Yeah, well,
What-
okay, that's another issue, but
I know.
anyway, that was really my hope on the transportation front, on the bicycle safety, pedestrian bike car interaction aspect, that we could develop a plan with that 150,000. And we'd have that to guide us going forward on some of these priorities. So what you're talking about would have dovetailed beautifully in it.
What have you heard about the Lake Mendota recommendation from this committee? Or,
Well, I forwarded to our administrator that the recommendation of this committee was, 5 speed bumps at $20,000 apiece for a total of $100,000. And that it recommend that it would go into the CIP. And that's something that's come, right now, we're working on the CIP. Staff is working hard on the CIP. And I only mention logic because right now, the administrator is having to put together 2 parallel CIPs. One, if we buy logic, and one if we don't, because it's our financial planning. So it's very hard right now for Brian to be able to sort of juggle all. The board is at some point supposed to see, and it may be at our next board meeting, a priority list of things that go into the CIP. And I think staff will make recommendations and the board will either vote on it or not. Where this sits amongst everything else, I don't know at this point. And when I find something, I will relate it to you. I would guess it might be an approach that, okay, maybe we can, put one in next year and put a speed bump in. And then maybe in subsequent years, there might be, money's available, we'll keep doing more. Or maybe it'll all come at once, I don't know. I would, if I was to put my money on it, I would think it would be spaced out over the years. So how do you want to proceed? I think this is really important discussion,
It is.
and I'm glad we had it, Tom, because and I don't know that we've resolved it, but maybe we can go ahead and talk about some of these things, but I guess what I would suggest at this point, let's kind of get an update on some of these things. And over the course of the next month or, over the next, let's start thinking about how we want to structure. But I certainly want to do it in a way that all of you are happy with and is productive and we can move forward in a positive way.
again, I'm getting a little confused. The way you're saying now, we should continue having discussions until we decide how we want to proceed. Earlier, you said I should proceed with working with Christine or anybody else who wants to develop a draft statement for us to discuss. They're very different things.
Okay, well, let me try to make it simple.
Okay.
You had suggested something about identifying 3 top areas.
I said they were, yes.
And that we would arrange our priorities and maybe assignments to people or people to work on those different areas based on that. I see that as maybe one option, and then I had, as I've written here, as an option. So I guess what I'd like to determine, do we go with option A or option B? Because they seem to be sort of different approaches. Maybe this is a little more specific. Is that That makes sense.
Yeah, I think, I mean, 10,000 feet view, I think this should be the forum where we discuss things rather than having subcommittees or people working at home. I feel like there could be research done or,
Yeah, and that's
Interview-
really all I was looking for.
and I feel like we bring it to here and we update the meeting, you know, and we can perhaps categorize them in one of the three categories that Tom mentions. Maybe those are your agenda points.
Yeah.
But I do think the committee members, that this is the forum, this is where the action should be.
Well, and that's kind of like to use the bike boulevard as an example, you know,
Right.
I thought, okay, Tim's into bikes, he's, you know, are you willing to do this? Go look into it,
Right.
do a little bit of that research.
I already don't really have an update
and
today.
Collaborate with people and bring it
Right.
back to the committee, we discuss it.
Yeah,
And so that was my intention, and I guess I had approached every one of these topics in that way, thinking, you know, Bob, you went out and you came back with a presentation, made some recommendations. And hopefully, we'll get, you know, be able to move forward. And, so that's kind of how I had approached it. And,
how involved can this committee be with the Safe Street for All report
well,
or
if
grant?
that comes through, we had already selected a committee. I was non-public works at that point, but, Rob, well, when I got this opportunity, I wanted to participate with Rob because he was the head of this committee. So Rob was gonna be on that, ad hoc committee to represent public works. So we definitely were a primary
Yeah.
part of this. And then we talked to, we sent out a notification and asked all residents who would like to participate in this. And we got a bunch of people and kind of looked at different people from different perspectives and then, you know, asked them why they would want to be on it. We picked, I think, a good bunch of people, but that we've never even met because about that time we were told that it wouldn't happen. So that's kind of how we approached that. Definitely public works was involved, and would have been heavily
Yeah.
involved. And, so do we, I guess I'm a little unsure how to go forward here. Bob, do you have any more you would want to talk about? Or Tom, I think you gave me a good, what I was looking for from you. And I guess it's, you know, where do you go from here? To me, that's up to you. How do you want to push forward?
I mean, that's,
That too open-ended?
that's,
Am I asking too much of you?
no, you know, it's not a question of too much. It's a question of, it's not where I want to go. Is this something that, as a committee, that there are certain things that have to be done prior to the committee to bring together information? That's basically what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And whether you call it subcommittees, I don't care what you call it. Is this something that, as a committee, we want that prior information to be brought? Then I'll do it. If we want more discussion and setting up, and it will wait then, and I won't do it. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay,
And that's what I have been trying to figure
from my perspective, I think this perspective on traffic and through the village, all those issues are vitally important. And so I think anything that you want to bring together, I think it's good.
Are we still interested in what was earlier discussed as trying to develop a draft as a committee of a policy statement, which is what was the original intent? I don't care if it stays or not.
Okay,
To think about the village in terms of both these two categories, traffic reduction. Is that what I should be thinking about when I meet with Christine or anyway, if either of you want to meet? Or you? Or is it something else that you want? Or we want?
Well, I would ask the committee. To me, that's fine. I think those are two important issues and I'm open to that. But I would ask everybody else if they feel the same.
Tom, it feels like you're feeling the committee is too reactionary and we deal with smaller subtopics. And you're thinking, should we be the dog, not the tail?
I
Should we
think it
like,
needs to be both because of the nature of the village. But I
Right.
think,
but there's so many things in your draft that you will have to consider that we have zero influence on. The traffic through university, we can't control that, so.
no, we can, but it helps. For me, it helps think about, and that's what Brian was trying to help me, but we haven't gotten too far. What are different options to think about, how you reduce traffic reduction? I mean, if you're talking about all these other pedestrians and bicyclists and so on, unless you deal with traffic, then you haven't dealt with anything because it's the context is the same, and you're just working around existing conditions that are going to get. And so, why am I going into this? Because there is a sense of with all these things here, that maybe it's me. I have to have a sense of the village when I'm thinking about these. And this came up with Lake Mendota Drive. One of the questions continuous asked, if you put something on Lake Mendota Drive, where is the excess traffic going to go? And Rick very nicely said it goes onto University Avenue. But when you did it on Edge Hill, it went into the school.
Right.
And so you have to find ways of trying to think about that as you deal with the specifics. But the specifics are always going to be there because people have issues that come up.
Well, it would seem, Tom, that, and I've always said this, that we should be taking a holistic view of things. So we're not just pushing the problem around like, I think, Edge Hill, in my opinion, is, it certainly solved the issue on Edge Hill, but push a lot of traffic, speed bumps, but push the traffic over by the school. So I don't think that's good policy. I think we need to have this 30,000-foot view and look down and say, okay, and that's what I would hope from a policy standpoint, is that we'll be looking more holistically at the village and addressing the very things that you mentioned, rather than, oh, it's fast on Lake Mendota, let's just fix it. You have to take that next step and say, well, what does that fix impact? And so that's where I think that's very appropriate for the committee to be able to develop a policy that's broader and thinks about some of those cascading effects that you might have where somebody dealing with just an issue on this corner or that corner wouldn't consider it.
And I mean, this is, and if we can do that.
It's okay. I'm willing to take time. But this is really important that we get
As
our vote in the right direction.
when there was the old traffic committee, we had people come, and you probably heard me say this before, from the university saying, we're building the West Campus and we're putting the hospital, but there won't be more parking spaces, there won't be more traffic and so on. Well, either they were totally off base or they didn't know what they were talking about. Because what we've seen over the years is just the hospital, they rebuilt the parking ramp probably 6-8 times to increase the traffic. Now they're developing the Fauci Center, the environmental center, and they're talking about monetizing the West Campus, which means we have to anticipate that because we're the access route other than University Avenue. And this is, to me, it's not going to affect me because this is going to, you're talking about 10 years. But the traffic committee that I was on was in the 90s, so 20 years later. 20 years from now, you're going to be feeling that here. I'm not going to be here. Okay, where I'll be, I don't know. And so you need to anticipate that. So it's not just planning about the existential things of the moment.
Yeah.
It's also thinking about what kind of village are these things happening around us? How do we, in a sense, try to plan so they don't affect the quality of life living here?
Oh, I think if you put those thoughts into something in a kind of a report, that broader look at things, and that'll be a good guidance, because I think it'll help us not get in this trap of only looking at this intersection, that we're taking into account this broader context and as we make these bigger moves and how we fix things, how we put in speed bumps, how we control traffic. I think you have to have that, that scope that you're talking about, you know, identifying that the scope of the problem and what the issues are, what the potential problems are. I don't think we have a document. But even that would be a huge help.
Okay, so. If we,
Confused,
I will try to prepare.
You're not confused, are you?
you know,
What?
let's summarize what we discussed.
Very good, Tim.
No, I was gonna let Tom do it, like, is this something that you are willing to do?
It's, well, actually, with Lake Window Drive, when we were talking about it, I ended up having to talk with a lot of people. But also just reading the local paper, you just have to read the local paper to understand these things. So it's, for me, it's just a matter of putting it down on paper, because it already is what we've sort of played with for the last year.
Right.
So I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to do it unless it's an agreement that that's what should be done. And that's really what I was asking.
Okay. Well, I give you my view.
And I'm
one
not
of
being
seven.
messianic about this one.
I'm one of seven. Because I call roll doesn't make me any more influential. I don't want to be any more influential than the rest of the other 6 people. So. Okay, let me just ask this then. Is there anything in the schedule that I have for tonight, especially under item 8, that we would like to further discuss or people would like to update? And then we can come back to more discussion, Tom, if you like, but I'd like to make sure that everybody.
I have no updates for point D, other than that I'm looking around.
Did you see that? I did forward to you, Rob Stanky had forwarded me that, was it the TAP, the Transportation Alternative Program from the city? They have money for, every year they have money that you can apply for. It's a 80-20 split. It's federal money, but the local municipality has to come up 20%. And it had to do with bicycle. It was bicycle cart. Tim, are you familiar with this at all? You just look it up.
Yeah, the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, does fund alternative transportation method type stuff. I would say it can be kind of competitive. They do like to see, you know, like a really classic project would be, you know, you're in a rural area and you've got a county highway or a rural road that kind of is missing any pedestrian amenities whatsoever. And you want to extend the pedestrian amenity from the downtown of XYZ city to this development that's just been built or was built 10 years ago or whatever it was, you know, about a mile away from town. And so you build a bike path in the right of way and you use TAP money to do that. You get like an 80-20 share. That's a really, really classic example of what that program was to fund. In other uses, it can fund other things if you try to get a little bit more creative with it. The difficulties we have here in the Madison general area is that you're unlikely to get that 80-20 share. A lot of that TAP fund type stuff actually gets administered to municipalities near Madison by the Madison Planning Organization, or the MPO. That's the same organization that was administering the federal funds in the same way for the village's Safe Streets for All grant funding that you were able to get. So it does fall under that same blanket. And my understanding, if I'm remembering it right, is in Madison specifically, and through the MPO, you're probably not going to get that 80-20 grant. Madison MPO would get, you know, a bucket of funds that they would call TAP grant funds. And then municipalities within the Madison area could apply for those funds and get a different level of funding. The general idea there is that the MPO wants to stretch those dollars a bit further than what the 80-20 would allow. So they would, you know, take it down to 40-60 or 60-40, or it kind of depends on what their targets are on a given year. But those do exist, those programs for sure.
So it sounds like it would really have to be a project that we were willing to invest in.
That would be the most competitive type of, yeah. I would say it would certainly still more than likely involve a significant amount of village funds, and competitive projects are more likely to be higher capital values. Yeah.
So like extending a sidewalk, like last meeting, we talked about extending a sidewalk on Oxford to that new crossing. That wouldn't be big enough of a project, probably.
I don't know.
Tim, do you know, or?
They do
I
have,
remember, I think I missed the last meeting.
they have eligible projects. It's under cityofmadison.com under their transportation alternatives program. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, well, it says here eligible projects include sidewalks, bike lanes, and separated paths, on and off street infrastructure that supports safe travel, pedestrian and cyclists. So
Yeah,
they could fall under that, I suppose.
then like a project like Locust,
Well, that was one that came to my mind, but
that's a proper one.
that's a proper one, but I think that's what, $300,000 to $400,000, and, you know, if we're gonna have to pay 40% of that, I'm guessing that would be a pretty heavy lift right now for the village. That's why we were hoping for the Safe Streets. That was one of the prime projects we wanted to look at. Well,
With Locust, you can make the case to the MPO that I bet you 50% of the bike riders on Locust are Madisonians.
Well, and to be clear, the boundaries of the MPO specifically, it has Madison in the name, but it's the Madison urbanized area. So the way that that boundary is defined includes all sorts of municipalities who are not Madison. Madison is certainly the primary one, but you know, Middleton is in there as well. McFarland is in there as well. No, it extends out quite a ways. So it's not, you know, it is Madison centric. That's where the central location of the urbanized area that we're in here is, but you're making the case to a, you know, regional organization as opposed to the city of Madison themselves. But the extension of the Locust Path, I would say, of any of the village transportation alternative programs, stands the best chance of getting funding of any sort. Just in that, I mean, it's on multiple planning document plans from previous years. It's a very distinctive missing link in the Black Hawk path in terms of like off-street trail. You know, you go from Middleton on the Black Hawk path all the way through Show Hills here and back on out to almost, you know, the start of campus there really. And it is one of the few missing off-street links. So it's a pretty, I think that would in particular stand a good chance at good applications for funding, especially with the high use that sees.
have we ever talked to Madison about this? You know, because I would think it would be in their interest, as you say, it's a lot of Madisonians driving through there, that to help fix this link, and maybe they would assist in that, just to make contiguous and uniform their whole bike path.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be worth talking to. I don't know
Yeah.
who you talked to in Madison. I mean, there is the MTO, but is that where it would reside, or would it be more in the Department of Transportation or Planning, or?
It
Do you
used
have
to
any
be,
sense for that?
Yeah,
Jim?
there's multiple organizations that could be interested. Specifically for the Black Hawk Path here, it has used a 50-50 grant funding program for past missing links, such as the one along Catafalque Drive near Marshall Court there, just south of the Logic Building. As that was going up, that missing link was constructed, and that missing link was funded 50-50 through a program called Park and Ride, which is a county program. So it has strong regional significance, I would say, that missing link on Locust. And the county, through that same Park and Ride grant program, funded past links on the path as well. So that has seen multiple rounds of that 50-50 from the county. I would anticipate that there'd be hopefully some grant funds that we could. Unfortunately, the Park and Ride program specifically has fallen by the wayside. Budget cuts is give an explanation there from the grant funding administrators that I've talked to. And that one's kind of gone out of favor. But yeah, things like this TAP grant program, or if the Park and Ride for some reason is resurrected by the time the village is looking at that Locust path, those are definitely good options to be thinking about having them in the back of our heads. Obviously, the big kicker on the Locust path really is the railroad. And we did get a beacon of light there with our conversations that we had with the railroad recently, in terms of, they would be willing to basically take that footprint of where that sidewalk is now, and instead of a 5-foot thing, make that a 10-foot thing. That's okay on their end, with the caveat that they want western closed, which is not a non-zero caveat by any means, but that was kind of the message we got from them.
You're gonna want something to reach.
Yes.
Western is heavily used again.
Well, I'm just thinking here, I'm wondering if there's a way to somehow, I don't know, canvas these different organizations and see if we can come up with a way to pull something together to work on Locust. Was there in any of these projects, is there any public, private, or is it all municipal?
I have not seen one that has seen a lot of private funding. Generally, it's been municipal. Yeah. Yeah, there's been, I just heard of T-Mobile for some reason, has been funding a lot of like park projects specifically. They've got, but I think that's more focused on rural communities. But they have been, that's the most significant form of kind of park related, I guess, and transportation alternative type related funding that I've seen recently, is for whatever reason T-Mobile. From a private standpoint, at least.
this is still the bicycle and pedestrian organization within the city. I remember we worked with them when we were working on the bike path with the Wisconsin Bicycle Federation. I'm not sure if either of those organizations are still in existence.
Certainly, I know that the city still has a pedestrian and bike coordinator. I've yet to meet them
guy
in
named Ross?
person, but I know that role. Yeah, they switched roles not too long ago. It used to be a Renee Calloway there, and it's a newer person now. But yeah, they would be a good person probably to start with, the ped bike coordinator. That would be my guess in terms of, what interest levels does the city have in that particular stretch, and what options might be available.
So the goal is to try to find a way to fund that missing link portion of the bicycle path.
Well, I think that's something we might
look
look
at.
into.
Sure.
Yeah, see if there's some opportunities.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Okay, moving along.
Track lights.
Bob, do you have anything more you want
Maybe.
to add about the anything new to share about the signs? I think when we talked last time, we were talking, Terry was gonna, I think, look into the cost of signs or
Oh, yeah.
we hope that you made in your presentation and
I remember the signs that are out there now, were, sponsored by Trek Bikes. But, the contractor was, ACS. They're the ones that fabricated all those.
oh, okay.
Affiliate, I think it was called, like Affiliated Construction Services. And so, they might be a company to, to ask.
Speaking of signs, I know Terry, regarding the crosswalk at Oxford. He had I think he's got a couple of signposts in there.
For the parking?
For the parking,
Yeah,
He hasn't
yeah.
gotten the signs yet, but the
I think the
the
signs
jetting
are,
machine was there and to do something else, so he had to come over and put those posts in.
I think there's signs up too,
Oh, is it?
that say no parking here to intersection or here
Then
to crosswalk.
I didn't notice it. but-
Yeah.
Great.
And the whole reason why that resident that lives there was actually parking on the street and not her driveway is because it's really complicated for her to pull out of her driveway, so she rather parks on the street.
Yeah, she's older. I
Yeah.
think.
So I guess, the only thing that I'd like to propose, if you remember those smaller signs, I thought those might be a nice way to, introduce some of our courtesy speed limits. And for me, just, my own personal preference or point, I guess, is that, I don't mind if people want to go fast, but what I'd like to see is if somebody starts getting close to, pedestrians, that they need to slow down,
I agree.
It's just courtesy, right?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Use a
really
bell.
comes down to courtesy and
Call out.
sort of etiquette of, rules,
Right.
knowing the rules of the road and.
It startles someone if suddenly a bike zips past you and you didn't see them coming or hear they're coming.
That's kind
Yeah,
of like
makes it-
sailing, right? You always yield, motorboats yield to sailboats
Right.
because they have less maneuverability. It's the same way with a pedestrian.
Yeah, even running, when I'm running and I'm gonna pass someone, I call out
Yeah.
on your left.
Yeah,
People startle, that's.
I have a question, but.
Go ahead, Mel.
On Sherwood Boulevard, where the bike path reaches Sherwood Boulevard, is there a full stop sign there? Is there any signage?
yeah, I think I noticed that the other day, there is
For bikes.
a bike stop
The
sign, yeah.
bike path by the railroad, you mean?
Well, it's by the railroad on Sherwood.
That's an uncontrolled, we talked about this last time, that is an uncontrolled crosswalk. So, because we talked about putting these flashers up, push button flashers at the crosswalk. And from what Brian said, that typically goes up in an uncontrolled intersection where you don't have a stop sign or a stop sign.
Yeah.
That would qualify by the railroad tracks, except the railroad does not, they don't allow any flashing lights anywhere near
Here's why I'm asking.
you think there should be a stop sign?
I was driving in a biker just went through that.
And then probably yelled at you,
Huh?
and then yelled at you.
Absolutely, it did. It actually did more than that.
Are you suggesting that maybe on the bike path that there's a stop sign? Do they have those? Yeah, I don't write out.
If the bikers have a forced stop, I don't know.
I thought I noticed a sign there the other day when I was walking. I thought I
It
saw a
should,
stop
yeah,
sign.
Yeah,
It was really dangerous because,
Yeah,
I mean, if I hit him with my car,
You're
I
all,
may have dented my car, but he would have been in trouble, but he just shot through it and then yelled at me.
for that yielding to him. Yeah, I think they get used to people being so courteous.
I don't mind being courteous, but the guy,
Right.
he was going fast. I mean,
Yeah.
he was one of your speeders.
I feel like in a lot of bikers' minds, that is,
it's a bike path.
it's
and
a
I'm-
bike
for me,
path all the way to Middleton. It's a highway for bikes. The highway is the wrong word here, but
It is actually classified. I was just reading that before this meeting. Bike paths are considered highways.
oh, really?
Yeah,
But I don't think this is technically a bike path out here. It's multi-use path or it's
Right.
right.
There's a descriptor for it, I think.
And in Holland, all the roads, they separate cars and bikes as much as they can, because that's what causes incidents when they're mixing. And the bike always has priority. So cars, when anytime they cross, priority goes to the bikes. Bikes never stop. Like it's like they put stop signs on for the cars and across the bike path.
Mm.
I don't mind stopping, but
Yeah, you want some warning, right?
I
You
want
don't
one,
have
and it's-
to, I
and
think
it's
right now the bike
fun.
has to stop for you.
fun.
I think the bike had to stop for you.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
even
because they have
so,
stop sign.
this person was going so fast and it's blind. I mean, I didn't see him until he was actually crossing the road and coming in front of me. And it's dangerous. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question. How would you like to see the agenda next meeting? What format? It's kind of coming back to what we talked about before. I'm feeling a little bit like we're not making much progress, and maybe it's the structure of this that's causing that. I wanna correct that if I can, but,
I'll make a suggestion.
okay?
Go back to the minutes or ask Rob what there were three priorities that we discussed. And maybe raise them as, are these the ones we want to maintain? Not. As a discussion. And at the same time, if you want, I will, if I'm understanding, I'll try to get Christine together, and I have to write this is, I just haven't had time. Come with some statement about what I was talking about for us to think about.
Okay.
Which is all I want to do. I mean, it's not meant. And so. With that,
Sounds good.
okay.
So next month.
Is there
graphic,
anything else,
and
huh?
then-
Is there anything else we want to discuss? I'll make a comment afterward.
To me, I don't think there's anything wrong with a list of agenda items, but I think it should be kind of like maybe a floating priority. Where maybe, we list the top three things on that list of priorities,
Okay,
but that way we still. I think it's good the way everyone contributes ideas on things that they'd like to see, get done. But
okay.
then we could always have, those three priorities that kind of guide the,
Then
the
we're gonna
meetings.
have to come up with three priorities. Right?
Right.
And we're gonna have to come to some consensus on that.
Mhm.
Okay. Julie, or I guess I have to call for a motion to adjourn unless there's any other future agenda items anybody would like to see.
We just gave three. Two.
Okay, help me put that in bullet form.
We're gonna bring back from the notes the three priorities that we established, I think it was in September or October,
Mhm.
to discuss whether those are our priorities or not. And then the second is I was going to, I keep promising this, but I don't do it, work with Christine on what